Most heterosexual couples at one point or another are going to deal with pregnancy, birth control, and fertility issues. A lot of people already think they know everything about these topics, but when I actually start to cover birth control and fertility awareness in my classes, I'm pretty surprised at how little a lot of people know, and a lot of my students are too. So I want to walk through a few of the things that you're going to notice in this chapter. First of all, there are a lot of birth control methods, and there are pros and cons to all of them, but people really need to take into account their values, financial issues, and of course their personality when they decide what birth control methods will work for them. One particular thing that people are going to have to take into account is you have to use whatever method consistently and be able to communicate with your partners. So psychologists know this is a big problem for young people. A lot of times young people won't go out and get the right birth control methods. They won't acknowledge that they're actually sexually active, and they have a really difficult time communicating with their partners. There are also a few definitions in the book that you might not have really thought about. When you hear about how effective is a birth control method, there's actually two different numbers, and the textbook shares this with you numerous times. These two different numbers are, the first one is the lowest observed rate. The lowest observed rate is the failure rate if you use the birth control method just the way it was supposed to be, perfectly. The other rate is the typical user rate, and as the name implies, this is how the typical person uses birth control, and it's never as good as the lowest observed rate. This is really true with condoms. Condoms are actually pretty good if you use them right, but the typical user typically doesn't. So when you see the two different effectiveness rates, that's because it's the lowest rate and then the typical rate. The other thing that's really important to remember about fertility awareness is learning about a woman's menstrual cycle. Now, I see the men out there rolling their eyes already. When I teach this in class, the men go, I don't need to know this. But really, everyone should know this, men and women. So what a woman should do is to actually get a calendar and plot out whenever she has her menstrual cycle. So I picked a date that actually conveniently started with day 1 on this particular Sunday. So let's say that the woman starts her period on day 1. This would be day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Most women might have about a 4-day period. So then as she counts down, on day 14 is when she would ovulate. This is when she is particularly likely to get pregnant. Now obviously, a woman who doesn't want to get pregnant should always use birth control. There's no safe days. But around day 14 is a particularly dangerous day because that's when you would ovulate. So then you'd want to back up and obviously be very careful between days 11, 12, 13, 14, and then also 15, 16, 17. The textbook kind of calls these the high-risk days. These are the days that you are particularly likely to get pregnant. Again, there's no safe time, but those are the high-risk days. Now, if you're in a stable relationship and you decide you want to have children, and this would come into fertility awareness, these would be the days that you could try to have a child. So this is something that a lot of people don't know about, but it's a good method for women that they should actually always know when they're having their period and then also when they're ovulating. Okay, men, you can listen up again. I hope you enjoyed just this brief overview of birth control, fertility awareness, and pregnancy. I'm going to end this video with a quick whirlwind tour of what you can go to your local pharmacy and find. I just took my camera in and showed you all the different over-the-counter condoms that are available. It's pretty amazing what you can find over the counter.